Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Lincoln Journal Stars Life in the Red podcast. Luke Mullin and Amie just for another update. Coming into late January, big games in the basketball season, both the men's and women's teams, and big wins to talk about from this last week. And certainly it was when we came on last week, there was a lot more pessimism. There's been a lot more optimism, I think, in the basketball world over the last week.
Yeah, this was a stretch where Nebraska both teams really needed to get one or two wins to help settle things down after a rough stretch for both teams. And they both got it done. Obviously, no midweek game for Nebraska women this week, but they've got a big one up ahead.
Yep, certainly. So recent results to talk about, tournament resumes to discuss a little bit too as we get into that part of the season. But let's start with the women's basketball team. And of course, the most recent game we have to talk about, missed opportunity a little bit to pick up a real quality win. Went on the road, played Penn State, lost to them 82-73. And really kind of the story of the game, it was lost there in the second quarter. Penn State outscored them 24-12, pulled away a little bit out there, after halftime too. And just, I wouldn't say that it was a bad game. They didn't play poorly. They shot the ball pretty well, but some of that great defense that they'd had recently was missing in this one.
Yeah, it feels like if it's not one thing, it's something else. In the Big Ten, you can't always just play well offensively. Like, you have to have your defense stand out, and didn't necessarily do that in that one.
Yeah, but Alexis Markowski, big effort as always, 16 points, 19 rebounds. And I think a big reason why there's still a ton of optimism about this team is you look at how they're looking, their postseason resume. And right now the Huskers ranked number 28 in NET, 2-6 against Quadrant 1. And this was kind of a little bit of the note of the missed opportunity there. Michigan State and Maryland are those two wins, but 0-6, all those 6 losses, they're all against those Quadrant 1 teams, and Penn State in that group as well. Another one of those difficult opponents that have just been that little bit better than Nebraska so far.
Yeah, I feel like they need to have a turnaround in that regard. You can't just beat up on bad teams like they've definitely done this season. But they need to be able to play well and maybe even steal one against a really good team. And there's an opportunity for that this weekend. But I'm not overly optimistic that they could beat Iowa at Iowa. That'd be really tough.
Yeah, if they're looking for a signature win for that tournament resume, obviously could come this week. Nebraska on the road at number 5 Iowa. That is Saturday, 1 p.m. That game being shown on the Big Ten Network. And of course, you can obviously talk about Caitlin Clark, but they're a very complete team around her too. They have a lot of different sources of offense that are really difficult to guard against, and it's going to be, I think, a real challenge there on the perimeter, obviously.
Yeah. What pisses me off is when people are like, Caitlin Clark versus Ohio State. No, there's more than just Caitlin Clark. Like, she wouldn't have all of her assists if she didn't have, people to pass it to who could also shoot the ball. So it's one thing that irks me. It's like, it's only Caitlin Clark. It's not only Caitlin Clark. Like, she's really good, don't get me wrong, but like, she's even better because everyone else around her is also good.
Yeah, and what even if she scores 25, 39, I'm sure they're a 70 point scoring team. Like, there's a lot of different pieces out there, and obviously that'll be a big one. They go on the road, and a little bit of news details on Nebraska's home game, Iowa. Of course, very soon after that, Sunday, February 11th, Iowa will play at Nebraska. And news, that game was sold out officially and could be the highest attended game in program history.
Yeah, that'd be pretty cool. A lot of black and yellow, I imagine, will be making the trip for that, because that's about the closest road game for them. So should be a pretty crazy atmosphere on that day.
A lot to look forward to.
But you never know. That's Super Bowl Sunday, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
At least it's early. I think it's at like 1.
Yep, earlier in the day. Yeah.
So, but yeah, it's going to be a very busy day for me because I love Super Bowl Sunday. I don't care who's in it. I do care who's in it. It'd be nice for me if the Chiefs were in it. But, there's good storylines all around. But, yeah.
Gonna have to be a quick turnaround. Get out of there quickly.
Yeah, pre-write as much as I can. But, yeah.
So certainly that's how things stand for the women's team right now. Again, on the road at Iowa Saturday. Big matchup upcoming for them. But moving on, got to talk about the men's basketball team. And this is the story about the difference that a week makes. And obviously on our podcast last week, we were in full-blown reaction mode. We didn't know the severity of Juwan Gary's injury.
What did I say? Hopefully it's just a calf strain. And that's what it was.
Exactly. I mean, it was incredible how the feeling has changed. Last week, back-to-back losses. Gary looks like he's out for the season. The sky's fallen, and now it's like the ship has been righted. Back-to-back wins. The NCAA tournament hopes are gone like they never left.
Well, they never did leave.
Yeah, I know. It was just the immediate reaction.
They never did leave. They haven't fallen out of bracketology. But yeah, two really big wins for them. They needed it. And now, as Rinkmass said last night, they have to get a road win. They have to. And they hit the road on Saturday for a brunch game at Maryland.
Yeah, quite the interesting setup here moving forward for that one. But, it's kind of interesting, too. Juwan Gary, is the Achilles would have been worst case scenario out for the whole year. Relatively minor, calf strain, only going to make him miss a couple games. It was interesting how quick, that he was maybe, game to game status, like to be back out there. He did miss these most two recent games, but it's really encouraging how quickly they were kind of having that discussion about like, hey, he's going to be able to get back out there.
Yeah, he warmed up yesterday, but he didn't feel confident in it. He didn't want to rush it. They still have 11 regular season games left. So, he's like, I don't want to rush it. So we'll see how he feels during warmups on Saturday. But yeah, he warmed up, but it was just like, I'm not quite confident in it yet. And you don't want him to play if he isn't confident in his leg.
I mean, that's all his power he's pushing off there. So certainly he'll keep testing that out, see how, that feels in the upcoming games. But these two recent wins, going back a little bit, 75-69, Nebraska beat Northwestern. And that was really interesting because they kind of tried to give it away there. I mean, they were up big. They kept turning the ball over, missing some shots. And then Keisei Tominaga with a big shot at the end to kind of put the exclamation point on that one.
Yeah, that felt like a game that they'd had like all season. Like they had a double-digit lead in the first half, gave it away. They had a double-digit lead in the second half, gave it away. And then they got the right shot to fall, and they won. They did not play well, but they won, and that's good enough. They built off of it, and they looked a whole heck of a lot better last night against Ohio State.
Yeah, certainly you got to grind out some wins. Not all of them are going to be as pretty as this most recent one. 83-69, Nebraska beat Ohio State yesterday night as we record this. And completely superstar performance. Rinkmass, career high, 34 points, 10 rebounds, 4 assists, 6 of 8 from three-point range, 13 for 17 from the floor. He was on fire.
It was incredible. And one thing that doesn't go on his stat line that absolutely does is he had to check out early in the game again because he was bleeding. And the Pinnacle Bank Arena DJ played Bad Blood while he was getting taped up. Anyway, that
incredible moment.
Moment. But yeah, he made an early shot at the rim and then several minutes later made a step back three that he admittedly was mad at himself for even attempting because he was not really thinking about his shot selection. And then it went and he's like, oh, okay, I'm going to have one of those days. And then he did. The next possession, the exact same thing, assisted from Keisei Tominaga to his right, same exact spot on the floor. If you were to watch the two clips, you would think it was just on replay. It was that similar. And then the floodgates opened for him. It was crazy. But yeah, 34 points.
Yeah.
Six threes.
Yeah. What I loved about those 3-pointers was those first two, it was clearly like, hey, scouting report, let this guy shoot the three. He makes them, and then they're like, okay, we better start contesting these. He's draining them anyway. He's lethal from 3-point range. That was incredible to watch, and then really good in the post too. All his post moves were working. Like, it was just one of those games where it was all coming together for him.
Yeah. As I wrote in my column last night, after the year that he has had, you can't help but be happy for him and how he had a game like that. Obviously, the season did not start out the way that he wanted to. And then midway through the season, needs to have knee surgery, a quick cleanup procedure, but still missed a few games and hasn't been full go in practice since, because they need him to play in the games at as full strength as he can, because they don't have Blaise Keita. So they need him. And for him to have a game like that, I'm happy for him, as all of Husker land is too.
And it makes you think back to, like, in the offseason, they got him in. Like, he's a big impact transfer. Like, you have that vision that, like, a performance like this might be possible. And for him to finally go out there, put it all together, certainly really impressive, and a big, big win for this Nebraska basketball team. And just talking about players who are playing really well right now, I want to discuss CJ Wilcher too. Certainly his contributions to the team, I think, have been really noticeable these last few games. And his 3-point percentage, just want to shout this out. His last 2 years with the Huskers, 35.8% from beyond the arc. This year, 44.7% so far. He has been phenomenal.
Yeah, he is having a great season. I know that he really committed himself, recommitted himself to just putting in the work in the off season, and it is clearly paying off.
Yeah, very noticeable. Just how improved, in certain aspects, just the consistency. He's always had the talent, but the consistency from him and his game really helping Nebraska over this stretch as well. And as you mentioned, the focus is now like, okay, tournament time, because if you look at NET rankings, those 2 losses, Nebraska was 56th after that, now up to number 47, but got to keep adding to those wins, and especially got to get them on the road. And going to Maryland, it's East Coast, it's noon there, 11 a.m., tip-off Central Time, the body clocks. That's going to be an interesting one, don't you think?
Yeah, I think this is their first of 3 11 a.m. Central tips this season. So one of those is at home, 2 of them are on the road. And got to be ready for it. Since class is back in session, they've been practicing in the mornings, so it's not going to be that big of an adjustment for them. But yeah, a very weird time for a game. Yeah,
and Nebraska will be contending with a really good Maryland guard, Jameer Young, averaging 20.7 points per game. At the same time, it's one of those games where if you're a tournament team, you should really be able to go on the road, win that one. I mean, expect, obviously, Maryland to be close to be competitive, but certainly an opportunity for Nebraska there to keep this recent winning stretch going.
Yeah, they need it. They have not won a road game in a long time.
Yeah, they've not always been the same team away from PBA as they have been at home. Certainly, that's been the case. So again, that is 11 a.m. Saturday, Nebraska men's basketball back in action as well. And as we wrap this one up, I want to talk about one of the top athletes in this entire athletic department, Nash Hutmaker. After a standout football season, they're on the gridiron. He has been part of this wrestling team. You wrote a really good column about him a couple weeks ago, and he's continued wrestling since. That's going to be throughout this whole season. I think we just have to talk about like the transformation that he went through physically, and also just the competitive desire to go out there, be part of this wrestling team. It's incredible.
Yeah, it's crazy. So Matt Rule and Nash had kind of joked about, too bad there isn't a 330-pound weight class all season last year. And then, Mark Manning stopped into Matt Rule's office like he does. It's not out of the ordinary. The coaches all like to support each other, which is kind of cool. Mm-hmm. And again, they were talking about, too bad there isn't a 330-pound weight class. And Coach Manning was like, does he want to wrestle? And Rule's like, ask him. I don't know. And thus began the insane journey for him to go from 330 pounds to 285 pounds and look the best he's looked in a long time. both physically and just like emotionally. Like he just looks so happy.
Absolutely.
Like
Yeah.
after, because I was at his first two matches, and after he won that first one, he like it's so hard to describe just how happy that he was. Like the smile that he had when the official raised his hand. I don't know. It was really special. And then he lost against Iowa, his first loss since before high school. But even then, like he still looked not happy that he lost, but just like at peace with being back on the mat. And I don't know, it's really special.
Yeah. That's something that really stood out to me from the situation. I was like, if you're Nash, like you don't go through this process unless you really, really love it. And like, obviously his pedigree in high school, like it's clear, that he enjoyed wrestling, but like to go through that, I'm sure was a really, really strenuous, physical stretch to get down to that weight and to, his teammates are, they're going through winter conditioning, like he's in season, like, and going through conditioning, like the amount of work that he's going through right now to be out there, to be on the mat, and to be able to still be out there in the fall and be an impact player. I mean, it's just a total commitment to both the football and the wrestling teams. And it really, really amazing to see a guy compete at such a high level in two sports.
Yeah. And in my conversations with Matt Rule and Tony White about this, they're definitely going to have him play lighter this fall. They're not exactly sure what number they'll land on. 310 is an early, suggestion for that. But can you imagine, like, he's in the best shape of his life right now. Like, and he's got more football to play.
Yeah.
And I am excited to continue to watch him wrestle, but I'm also excited to see what he's going to look like this fall. Because he was a monster last season. Can you imagine what he's going to look like playing 20-ish pounds lighter, more muscular, more free? Whew.
Yeah, he's already a very agile defensive lineman. Like that's very clear out there on the field. And certainly, he feels this is going to make him a better player too. And I mean, I think you could talk to a lot of football and wrestling coaches that would say there's a lot of overlap there. Certainly, some of the muscle groups, the skills that you're working there can help a lot. So that's part of the consideration too. And I think something else from your column that stood out too was like the amount of, and again, it was his first duel, sure, but like the amount of coaches, teammates that were out there. And I mean, that support has remained consistent since like they're showing up, they're supporting Nash, they're supporting the wrestling team. And that is just such a really, really powerful combination for them.
Yeah. And, that goes back to when Matt Rule first got here, right? They had their winter conditioning and they had their mat drills, and then they had their like challenge where go support your teammates or your classmates, right? Go to tennis, go to swimming, go to track, go to wrestling. And now that one of their own is a part of the wrestling team, like that support has showed up tenfold. And I think it's really cool. I mean, Matt Rule is at so many basketball games, volleyball, gymnastics, and you're seeing the team kind of follow that too. And I don't know, I think it's cool when you're all a part of one family and you support each other.
Yeah, certainly a lot of other sports showing up at these basketball games now too. It's been certainly a case of cross team support across this athletic department. So really cool note as we talk about Nash Huntmaker there, and this wrestling team as well in the midst of a very successful season. Nebraska currently ranked number 6 in the most recent National Wrestling Coaches Association poll. So we'll have more wrestling updates for you later as this season progresses, but certainly some big basketball games upcoming this week. As we mentioned, Husker men's team on the road at Maryland, women's team playing Iowa. So I think that is our Life in the Red update for this week, and hope you've enjoyed it as always. Appreciate all of you listeners and viewers coming back to us time and time again, and we will see you next week.